In this video, I'm going to show you how to make edits using the linear gradation and the radial gradation. Over in the tools on the right side, we can see that we have this gradation of dark to light, and that's the linear gradient. And then we also have this one in a circle, that's the radial gradient. They both work roughly the same way, except they create different shapes. And linear gradation is keyed to L, and then the radial one is keyed to R. So I'm going to come over to the linear gradation, and much like before, we have the kind of tool we are on, we have brushes, and we have erasing, so we can add and subtract from areas. So I think within this scene, I want to adjust the color. And so I want to play around with this so it's a little bit more in the reds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag to define how far I want this edit to happen. I can move that around, and if I hover over that anchor, we can see what areas are being affected. And I can also drag these kind of the distance markers to choose how much of the area is affected. And I kind of like that. I'm going to bump up the saturation, and I think I want a little bit more red in that area. So if I want more red, instead of just raising the saturation, something that I could do is I could add another gradation. And I can kind of build this up. Maybe I want my last kind of red to have just a little bit of, let's see, we'll kind of play around with this. I'm going to add a little bit of like yellowy violet to this, and I'm going to drop the exposure a little bit so it's a little bit more moody. So, and if I ever decide that I don't want any particular ones, or if I want to double check which ones are making an effect, I can always use backslash to kind of see what was my original at, and I can decide to select one and then delete that by pressing the delete button. And I kind of actually like this subtle transition. This pomegranate color is really nice. Of the radial gradation, it works pretty much the same. So if I click and drag, it'll create a circle, which I can change the size of that circle to make it more ovular, as well as I can rotate it a little bit if I so desire. And maybe I want to give like a little bit of glow from this figure, and we can see how much area is being affected by hovering over the anchor. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, we're going to up the highlights in that area to make it a little bit brighter. I think I want to adjust the colors to be slightly more yellow. So there's a little bit more yellowing, and I'm going to play with the saturation to give more color. That seems okay, and as I hover over it, there's a little bit of effect. I think I'm going to make this a little bit more dramatic by dragging the angles out even more so that it affects more of that area. And I'm going to play with the temperature to give it this nice yellow glow, which I think I enjoy, but I don't like how it's coming over on the rim of this area. So what you can do to a gradient, much like you can do to the brushes, you can come over to the areas at the top of the adjustments, choose the eraser, and erase out areas. So I'm going to up the size. I want to drop the feather a little bit because I want to be more clean. And I'm going to double check what areas are being affected. We can see in red, it's on this area. So I'm going to erase where it's affecting the rim of this container because I don't want it on any of those because it's on a kind of visually, it's more in the background and I want it to be blocked a little bit because I like this red purple that's happening over here. And if I want to be not distracted by the anchors, again, I can press O to kind of see what we're looking at without all the overlays. And I can turn those back on. I can use backslash to see what the original looked like to make sure that the edits that I'm adding are making a difference in a way that I want them to. So that is using the linear and the radial gradations.